All right, welcome to the Area 10 4-H Judging Clinic video. I'm Steele Graybar. I'm the 4-H educator in Elkhart County. And with me today, if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Sure. I am Kelsey Guadarrama in LaPorte County, 4-H and CED. And then Lauren Allison is also in LaPorte, but is not on today.
Hi, I am Julia Miller. I'm the 4-H educator and CED in Stark County.
Yeah, and this is all just a recording of a judging clinic that we led a couple weeks ago in May 2024 for 4-H exhibit project judges, specifically sewing, garden, arts and crafts, and anybody that was a volunteer that helps in the building was our target audience. And this was a training that we put together to help them with judging fundamentals, help them get to meet other judges, or if maybe they're a prospective judge, a training that we put together that would help them as well and get them on the right path. So the first slide that I have here is, what does it mean to be a 4-H judge? Was a question I asked the group. And I think there was a variety of answers in the room, but the biggest one, and the one that I wanted to touch base on, is we are an impartial person that is working with a 4-H'er in a limited capacity, but trying to provide them feedback, positive, constructive feedback on the exhibits or projects that they're working on, right? So simply put, we are a third party that is judging or critiquing their abilities. And what we want to do, the biggest thing, my main message across the first couple slides here is, as a judge working with 4-H'ers, we don't want to leave anything open to interpretation, right? We want it to be, when we're looking at a painting, for example, and we're telling that 4-H'er how to improve, we don't want them to have many or any questions after we've done so. Now, our group got into some open versus closed judging conversation. I think Kelsey's going to talk about that in a future slide because, and I'll just mention it here, the truth is when it's an open judging scenario where you're talking to the 4-H'er face to face, it's a lot easier to provide feedback and have that dialogue versus closed judging, which in my county, Elkhart County, is probably more common than open judging. It's a little bit more difficult because you're not having that conversation, right? So all the 4-H'er is going to get is a scorecard of some kind and have to interpret that. So being crystal clear at communicating is very important to be a judge. I also have on this slide is the Indiana 4-H mission statement. So our goal is to provide real-life educational opportunities to develop young people who will have a positive impact in their communities and the world. My extra conversation on that was, I think when we're working with younger 4-H'ers and judging 4-H projects, maybe 3rd through 7th grade-ish, 8th grade, it's important that we encourage them and are positive and reinforce that they continue trying these different projects that they're interested in. But at a certain point, and this is my opinion as an educator, is by high school especially, it becomes more of a priority, I think, to help kids and direct kids to this is what you're good at, this maybe isn't your thing, and be honest in that communication with them too. So that's the real life educational opportunities that I like to talk about in the 4-H program. Is it's time to start narrowing down what you're good at by high school and figure it out so that you're not still trying to figure it out when you're an adult much older in life. In the bottom left here, I have just a abbreviated version of the ecological model and how we relate as 4-H educators or judges or volunteers to the individual being the 4-H'er in this case. We're not that immediate relationship that they have every day. So that would be like their family, friends, maybe their teachers. We're more that community space, that third ring that's out there where we're trying to help them as a as a community-wide, societal-wide piece. Frankly, we just don't have that much time with the kids, the individual. So we have to be very cognizant of that and try to make the most of it, and help them however we can. So, and then it's a picture of a judge judging a project, and then that's me in the bottom right. So my next slide is, and this is a question I asked the group. We had about 19 participants in our judging clinic. You know, what's the most important part of the judging process? And we had some different answers, I think, but the most important one is giving feedback. That's making sure that we're not just looking at it and giving it a ribbon grade and saying next. It's how does that kid know why they got what they got, and how can they improve or move forward if they choose to with that project next year. So we got into our scorecards. I wanted to spend some time talking about our scorecards because I think it gives a really good example of how feedback can be interpreted differently. We looked at scorecards for sewing. We looked at garden scorecards. We looked at a couple different arts and crafts scorecards. We actually did a mock judging during the judging clinic as well. The picture here that you see of a ceramic piece is actually done by yours truly, about 25 years ago. But it's actually back there too, right there in my bookshelf. But I have the picture here. We had the actual exhibit at the clinic, and I asked the judges to go ahead and judge that with a scorecard. And I think that's the general craft scorecard that I have over here on the right side of the slides. So these are what we use for our projects in Indiana. Maybe you're not watching this from Indiana. Maybe you're watching this from another state. These are our scorecards. This is what we have to use. So if you look at it, there's not a whole lot to it, in my opinion. You have is it very good, good, or needs improvement? And then you have just one word descriptions of different things. So like usefulness, originality, choice of material, suitability of design. I think part of if we expanded the judging clinic in the future, we would maybe go over what those things mean a bit more. But I think that the second half of our judging clinic, which was breakout sessions. So like all of our arts and crafts judges got together and had a conversation about, you know, how they would improve judging. This is a great topic for them to talk about, is to go through those different categories and talk about how they think, what they think structural means, or decorative means, or workmanship means. Where I kind of place my emphasis on the general judging scorecards is, what's the difference between very good, good, and needs improvement? And, you know, how are you marking this box? So if you're a judge and you think you think that this ceramic piece is very useful, how would you mark it? Would you put a check mark in the very good box? Where would you put it in the very good box? So something that happens every year for me is I'll get 4-Hers that'll bring me their scorecard, and they'll wonder, hey, why did I only get a blue? I got very good in all the boxes. Maybe I should have got an honor or champion, or etc. Or maybe I only got one good in all very goods. Or my favorite one is, you know, hey, this check mark is really far to the right in the good box. So is it a good, or is it a bad good? You know, those are questions that 4-Hers ask. Those are questions that parents ask. And I can tell you, year after year, those are questions that I get asked. So I wanted to be very honest with the judges at our judging clinic and say, where you mark these scorecards, where you leave smudges on these scorecards, what you say and how you word it, all of that matters. Especially in closed judging like we have in Elkhart, because this is literally the only thing 4-Hers are going to get back from the judges. Frankly, when I talk to my judges in Elkhart, that top half there, very good, good, needs improvement, I ask them to go ahead and fill that out as best they can. But where the really constructive feedback comes from and where you're really helping the 4-Her is in that comment section in the bottom half, and making it very clear what they did well, what they need to improve, And hopefully they'll understand why they got the ribbon grade that they got as a result of that. Our judges shared some strategies that they use, which is number one, make sure that you're printing anything that you're writing, you're using print, don't use cursive. A number of our 4-Hers kids in general aren't being taught cursive anymore, so they can't read it. So your feedback may not be helpful if they can't read it, right? Number two was, I think they called it like a positive comment sandwich, right? So you have the top, which is, we're going to give this kid a positive comment. This ceramic project, you know, is really good, has really nice colors. Great. Number two, the middle of the sandwich, the meat. Okay, well, here we're going to get a little bit more critical. You know, this ceramic project is pretty dusty. It's pretty old. Did you do it this year? No, no, he did not. Did it a long time ago. But then the last comment, maybe you're leaving 3 comments. You can leave more than 3 comments, but you do a positive, you do a constructive one, and then you leave with a positive, and you say, you know, I really like that falcon on his shoulder. Really well done. And if you left comments like that, you know, 1 positive, 1 more critical, 1 positive, that works for all age groups, especially our younger ones, because they'll feel like this is a positive experience and they're still learning from it. But that's just an example. Obviously, sewing, garden, other arts and crafts projects would have other, you know, you would leave different kinds of comments for that. But that general strategy of positive, critical, positive, something to remember. So, all right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelsey.
Yes, so I covered open and closed judging at our clinic, and I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory when you think about it. Open judging is open, so people can come in and drop off their project. That gives you time to talk to the judge. And then closed judging is when you drop off your project prior to that judging time, and you're not allowed in there with the judges. And like Steele said, some counties have to do that. Elkhart is one of them because they're so large in the fact of they have a lot of projects to get through. So it would take a lot more time and a lot more days to have some open judging or have them all open judged. In LaPorte, we do all open judging because we're lucky enough to have that time and space to be able to do that. So in essence, the open judging gives you time for that feedback with the kid. You are able to actually talk to them. I think I struck a chord with a lot of our volunteers and judges the evening that we had this, because I said, this is not necessarily a time for you to say if the kid did the project or not. So we give the benefit of the doubt of if a kid did their project. We got into a lot of conversation about asking questions to the kids and if they're not able to answer those questions. So just be mindful of the questions you are asking the kids during open judging. And it's still important to leave all of those comments on the card, because later in LaPorte County, the parents are not supposed to be at the table. And I think that happens in a lot of open judging situations, is that the parent is not necessarily supposed to be up there with the kid and the judge. We ask that they stay further back, so it's that interaction and that learning with the kid. Speaking about their projects, a lot of public speaking skills come into play. So we ask that the parent's not up there, but later when the parent does review their kid's scorecard, because most parents do, they'll come back and ask us, hey, it says that my kid didn't do this project, like they really did do the project. And we never know how much a kid is getting help. So even if that kid has, for example, my dad's a woodworker and builds cabinets for a living, and I did the woodworking project in 4-H when I was in 4-H, and we always had really nice woodworking projects because my dad helped me with those types of things. Did I have to do all of the things like sanding and gluing and all of that? Yeah, I did, but my projects always turned out immaculate because he's a perfectionist as well. So if I were told that I did not actually do that project, I would argue that, because I did actually complete that project. So we have to give the benefit of the doubt that those kids are doing their own projects. You can ask questions that maybe would help understand if they understood the learning process that they went through. So how did you get this wood to be so smooth? Like what sanding paper did you use, or whatever the case may be. So we had a lot of conversation on that. And then closed judging, like Steele said, it's super important that you write at least 3 or 4 comments on those cards, because later on they're going to come back and be like, well, I got all goods, but I only got a blue. So what does that mean? And we'll get into the ribbons in a few minutes, but that's the gist of open and closed judging. Again, sometimes open judging can open the door for a greater conversation and feedback, and then our judges tend to not leave as many comments because they said, oh, well, I talked to the kid and gave them the feedback. That's important, but that kid's probably going to forget what they just talked about with the judge when they leave the table. So keeping those comments on those cards is super important for everyone in both open and closed judging situations. I think that's all. Yep. Okay. Thanks, Teal. Volunteers for our projects are there to help the judge with anything that they may need. So a lot of us, or the majority of us, try to find people to help help the judges at the table, so that that volunteer can kind of regulate what's coming in and can help with any questions that the judge may have. The volunteer is not judging the project or telling you who should win or not win. They're simply there to help you meet the guidelines of the project. So if you get something that comes in and maybe the poster backing is wrong, that judge could say, well, hey, this can't get any higher than a red because it doesn't even meet all the project requirements. So that volunteer can help you with the project guidelines, because most of them are superintendents of that project. So we've asked them to study those rules. We've asked them to understand the rules. And then if there's any other questions that you come across, they can find us, because they're going to know who we are as far as like 4-H educator wise goes, so that they can come ask us if there's any other questions. So it's really one person's opinion in one day. So that volunteer is there to help and assist, but ultimately it's your opinion as a judge what gets placed the highest. I think that's all for that slide. All right, ribbons. So it was brought to my attention that not everyone does a grand and reserve grand champion. That's something that we do in LaPorte County, and I believe Julia said that they do something similar in Stark County. So, but Steele, I think, said Elkhart does not do grand and reserve grand. But regardless, this is the system that we use. So everyone has a blue, red, white, and green. Most of us all have honors and division champions and division reserve champions. The average, what I had talked about at the meeting or at our workshop, was blue is pretty much your average. So it meets all the project requirements. It's good. It looks nice. And then after that, you can add or subtract. So if you think that this project is stellar, it could be an honor, which then would put it in the running for champion and reserve champion for that division. And then how we do our grand and reserve is that all the division champions are pulled out, picked out. You pick out a grand champion, and then you can bring up your reserve champion from that division. If you want that one to be reserve grand, then that's acceptable as well. But if we really focus in on that blue, that's it meets everything. It meets the backing, it meets the label requirement, it meets any simple things that need to be met. Some counties, and I believe it's St. Joe, and there's a few others that say you can only have so many honors per division. So keep that in mind. It may be something that you need to ask when you're hired, if there's any specific things that need to be followed, or if you had questions about the grand or reserve grand champion, that's something you could ask us as educators when you're hired. And then, like I said, blue is average, red, it's maybe missing something. So maybe the backing's not correct, or something's inaccurate on that poster, or they don't have resources. Then white is, you literally probably did it the night before and you're turning it in. It doesn't meet any requirements. Green is very rare that we give those out. We did give out 2 last year in LaPorte because the kids brought their projects in late. So they wanted to exhibit them. So we gave them their green ribbons that they participated in that project. But those projects actually were not judged because they were late. So they got green ribbons. I think that covers most of the ribbons. I think I'm passing it to Julia.
Thanks, Kelsey. So questions to ask when you're hired to serve as a judge. Figure out what all the projects are and the project requirements, because sometimes you may be asked to do more than one project. I know in Stark County, we Some judges will ask to judge about 5 different projects because there's only 2 or 3 in each project. So figure out all the projects that you're going to be judging and those requirements. If a lot of them are going to be the same as a state fair, but if it's a county project only, then find out what those requirements, the guidelines are for that project. Make sure you find out the date, time, location. Need to figure out, is it Central Time, is it Eastern Time, depending on where you live, where the county is. Because whenever on the right side here, you can see that I have one of my judges' contracts, and I know that person lives in Central Time, but I always put both Central and Eastern on my letters and contracts so people know for their time zone what time to be there. Because a lot of us live right on the line, so just making sure what time you are, where it is, if it's going to be at the fairgrounds or if it's a different location. Some of our projects are judged at a local school here in Knox. So figure out where the location is, figure out how long the judging may be. I know Steele had said that sometimes Elkhart County could run all day. So are they providing food, or do you need to make sure to bring your own lunch and snacks? Figure out how long you're going to be there. Ask if it's open or closed judging. Kelsey discussed those earlier about open and closed judging, and just figure out so you're prepared on what you need to be ready if you're going to be talking with the kids directly or if you're making lots of notes, extra notes. Also, if you need a pass to get into the judge's location, if the fair is already started, do you need a pass to park or a pass to get into a certain building? Make sure if you have to find that out also. Another thing, find out get the contract. Have a contract. I know we have contracts signed by all of our judges, whether they're static projects or livestock, and the stipend, how much you may be paid for your job. If there is mileage, if that's something that would be added to that. Figure out the scoring system and the placing system. Kelsey talked about the blues, like blue versus honor, how many, if there is a county that, like she says, St. Joe, that a certain percentage, if there's 10 kids and they only give a certain percentage of honors, and how many honors will you be giving for that project. So find out how that county sets their placing system, and if they have only a certain number of blues, or if they do the grand champion or not. It's like we do grand champion in Stark County, similar to LaPorte County, where we take all the division champions and then select a grand champion for that, and then the reserve grand. Just find out how that's going to be worked, and if there's a different scoring system than you're used to.
Okay, so that was really the general session that we had for our prospective judges, current judges, or 4-H building volunteers at our judging clinic. That was just the first half of the clinic, right? So then we had dinner, and then we actually did breakout sessions. So the garden judges that were there could meet with the other garden judges and maybe look at the rules and see how they interpret some of the rules, go over the project requirements, because believe it or not, some project requirements change from year to year. So you want to go through those every year. Don't just assume that you know what they are. Go through it every year when you get those mailed to you, and make sure that it's, what you're going to be judging those kids on that day. And then I was just going to mention too, one other thing was, when you're getting hired, I often find that it's very much negotiable, right? So if $50 isn't enough and you need more because you're coming from further away, or you feel that you're a state fair judge and that you deserve more, that's something you can ask. I think as a judge, I think that's fair to ask. On the other hand, if you're just trying to get into judging and you're not sure you're going to be as good as what they're looking for, then feel free to volunteer. You don't have to accept payment. You could volunteer to do it, or in some cases, fair passes or concert tickets or whatever. So think about, what you would want to do that and are willing to do for that to be a judge. But yeah, the second half breakout sessions went really well for us. I know our sewing, arts and crafts, and garden folks all had great conversations and got to meet other people from other counties. I think that's a big piece as well. And for us as educators, got to meet new prospective judges that maybe we can call and hire that are now trained. So I think this is a judging clinic that we'll do at our area in Northern Indiana again next year. And maybe your area, if you're watching this from a different area or a different state, is something you should consider doing too. So with that, I'm gonna say thank you for watching, and thank you to Kelsey and Julia for helping me with this, and we're gonna call it there. Thanks so much.